So, for the last 4 years before Donald Trump's second term, it was a crime spree. Both Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and many other high level officials, including Joe Biden, who apparently was Obama's third term after the 2020 rigged and stolen election with help from Democrat operatives around the country. Apparently, it was Obama's third term, and they had to continue to pay back those that they took money from. And since I've been watching the government for a long time, I know about Chinagate back in the 90s. And I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, the two names that came up in the Chinagate articles and newspaper archives came up again in the WikiLeaks documents. If you were paying attention, you saw the same two people from China came back to get their money's worth after they donated to the Clinton Foundation and other things. So we're living in a nation governed by a criminal class where they've perverted everything down to the rule of law. James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, is suing because she's trying to say she was wrongfully terminated by Trump's Justice Department because of her father. James Comey's first indictment was thrown out, but they're coming back after him with additional things, which, he's done a lot. So, as Trump has called him, he's a dirty cop. And many of these people in the intel community, like John Brennan, as I pointed out in my last video, they willfully and unlawfully murdered Americans and got away with it because, they are technically the law at that point while it's happening. And, due process is a big deal. And unfortunately for Jasmine Crockett and Al Green, the Texas redistricting maps wiped out their district. So now they don't have a district. But what about the criminals, Trump? What about the criminals we've all known were traitors and seditious, and the judges and all of them? What about all of them? I think it's time. Pay to play, Clinton Foundation. Pay to play, laptop from hell for Xi in China. Pay to play. Son of a bitch, they fired the prosecutor and they got the $1 billion in loan guarantees from the IMF. SOB. Classified documents. Hillary Clinton took the headers off, sent them back non-secured. Told her people to do that, violating the chain of command and capture system from, FOIA request. And there are documents, just like James Comey's contemporaneous notes are our documents. But then there's Joe Biden with the Corvette in the garage and classified documents from when he was a senator, just floating around, blowing in the breeze all around his Corvette. Then we've got everybody from the Obama administration using pseudonym email addresses, including Joe Biden, Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton on her server. All of it led back to Benghazi, Libya, with Christopher Stevens and the 600 cries for help, and he didn't get any because we sold some Stinger missiles to some countries that we shouldn't have illegally. Where's the family members of Benghazi that used to call for justice? Do they feel like they got it? Because I haven't heard from them in a while. Where's all the Republicans that acted like they were going to carry out an America First agenda and then they're not doing anything? It's kind of strange, kind of like the perfect storm, isn't it? Where everyone knows the hammer's about to drop, they just don't know when. They know that people are being prosecuted. We found out today a man named Paul Campo, former DEA boss, was arrested for working with the Mexican drug cartels. I think laundering over $12 million, I think, is what I read. 12 million, former head of the DEA or something under Barack Obama. He's worked for the DEA for 24 years, so he was dirty. Many of these people in the upper echelons and chambers of our government are compromised by foreign governments, which is probably why Kari Lake didn't win her race, because I think the cartels may have got to them. But it's funny, Democrats never said anything when the National Guardsmen and women were shot. But God forbid we blow up some boats bringing in drugs to kill us all and our people. God forbid that happen. And then there's Ilhan Omar, whose father was a warlord. Many people don't know that. Many people haven't looked into her or what's going on in Minneapolis or the connections to Fidel Castro being invited by the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce, I believe back in the late 70s, I believe it was. He was invited there. And Fidel Castro was a communist. So what was the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce doing inviting Fidel Castro to Minneapolis? And why is Minneapolis so overrun with people from Somalia now, because I believe that started under Barack Obama as well. And wasn't it Barack Obama's name on the documents directing everybody in the intel community, including John Brennan, who had his Terror Tuesday, kill list CIA sanctioned drone strike operations going on? Wasn't it Barack Obama's name on the document directing them all to tell the country that Trump may be an asset of a foreign government to try to undermine his whole presidency after they illegally spied on him during the campaign? And wasn't it Sally Yates, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and others that were in the White House unmasking General Flynn's name, doing up-chain surveillance? Didn't all that stuff happen? And didn't we pay the highest prices ever under Joe Biden for everything during the last 4 years before Trump? It's funny because I believe I remember reading that $100 million was donated to Act Blue from 100 major corporations. They each donated $1 million to Act Blue to fund the domestic terrorism across the United States of America. Why do I know that? And why isn't something being done about it? I know there's congressional investigations, but they don't have the power to arrest anybody. So, FBI, do something. Because it seemed to me, and this is just my opinion, it seemed to me after each of those 100 major corporations, also known as the manufacturers, donated $1 million apiece to Act Blue to fund the domestic terrorism on the credit card and debit cards, it seemed to me that when Joe Biden got in after they stole the 2020 election, blatant fraud everywhere, it seemed to me that the prices started rising because those companies, those manufacturers wanted their money back. So that's how they got it back. That's how the manufacturers and the corporations all work together. And it seems to me that, these corporations don't like having to come back to America. They don't like this. And that's a problem for the people of our country. It should have never happened. NAFTA should have never happened. But because we're governed by criminals, here's the main question I want to ask. Why is it that no other U.S. president besides Donald Trump ever brought our troops back in our lifetimes to guard our own borders and protect our own people as Americans? And why is it that no other president ever blew a drug ship out of the water when obviously they got routes and they're using the same routes over and over again coming from Venezuela, who might have had something to do with the Hammer and Scorecard Smartmatic Dominion stuff that went on? A lot of crazy things. Why wasn't any other president engaged in actually protecting the American people? Seems like it was just a ceremonial position. They got up there and then hired all their friends and did the best they could and made as much money as they could hand over fist. Kind of like Dick Cheney and Halliburton and KBR and what they did in Iraq with blowing up the trucks that had flat tires and getting $80,000 more. Seems criminal. But when you are the law, you can get by with anything, can't you? It seems that way. Let's see what happens. On December 17th of this year, Bill Clinton is subpoenaed to testify before the House Oversight Committee about his private relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The very next day, on 12/18, Hillary Clinton is scheduled to testify. I read the letter from James Comer to the lawyer representing the Clintons. It's available online. You can read it too. The Clintons tried to say they didn't have any in-person information that they couldn't just provide in writing for written questions, and James Comer wrote back a very detailed letter stating that no witness before the Congress gets to dictate when and how or what questions they will receive when they're being interrogated by Congress. Then, the very next day on 12/19, it's already started in Florida, in the Southern District, but some information has been ordered to be released as of today, December 4th, 2025. But on 12/19, we've got the full Epstein Transparency Act where all the documents are going to be released the very next day after both Bill and Hillary Clinton testify about their personal relationship that they had with Jeffrey Epstein, the world's most prolific and serial file. So it's awful strange timing right before Christmas. You've got a former president being called in and being interrogated by the Congress, and then his wife, who did a lot as Secretary of State to get paid back for all those donations they had. Strange timing. And then the very next day, all the files come out. So maybe there's a slim chance the American people get some justice. Slim chance. Let's see what happens.